Okay, welcome to Shoulder Injury Prevention and Rehabilitation for Fitness Professionals. Pretty standard format today. We're going to go through an hour or so of anatomy, physiology, injury prevention or typical injuries that you will see. We'll then spend the last part of the day talking about problem exercises that you do use and have seen in gyms, and we'll talk about ways of rehabilitating and going through a stack of rehab exercises. There's a very, very big ball, but it's a pretty poor excuse for a socket. Now if you compare that to what's happening down here at the hip, now there we're talking ball and socket. So we have quite a firm ball here on the hip, and the socket is reasonably deep. It's very, very rare to dislocate your hip. You can do it, but it's actually reasonably rare. Compare that to how common it is to dislocate your shoulder, and that's indicative of how shallow that little space is. Now if something is called the supraspinatus, let's orientate ourselves here with our scapula. Now that ridge of bone there on the top of the scapula, and if you reach around the back on yourself, you'll feel that big ridge right along there. Okay, that's the spine of your scapula. Okay, so and it's important that this scapula is here because a lot of muscles want to come from it and go to it. So it's an important area. So that spine of the scapula is where these names relate to. So supraspinatus, supra meaning above, it is above the spine of the scapula. So there's the spine of the scapula, and that's the supraspinous fossa just in there. Into the bent over row position, and you see that. You see them drop their scapula down into it. It's called chopping. So what they're doing, instead of doing a coordinated movement, scapula and humerus are coordinated as they come up. The weight's too heavy, or I can't control the movement, so you drop your shoulder blade or drop your scapula into the movement. But can you see how that's a faulty movement pattern in itself? Real life doesn't involve that. I don't jam it down and back and then do this. I want to reach and move my scapula in coordinated fashion with my humerus. If you got a guy who come in and could only get to maybe there, okay, and didn't have enough extension to get any further than that, might have been working on a computer all day, that sort of stuff, you can see how they're not suited to doing overhead positions or overhead exercises. Because if I tried to get him up there, so it causes all sorts of pressure through his shoulder. So overhead exercises probably aren't the go for him. Okay, and that's an easy way of doing it. Jumping in tummy for me. Another one pretty easy to have a look at. Take both arms forward and just keep your head down but try and lift both arms off the mat for me. Now sometimes you'll see people who just have no chance in the world of doing that, and they're rounded forward and they try and lift up and nothing happens. Getting the weight up to that position and taking it over. Now it's a double-edged sword. I love the exercise as a thoracic extension exercise because it really opens you up nicely. You might have done it across a bench, you've done it that way, and you see people really getting a big extension over the top of it. Now as a thoracic spine extension exercise, it's beautiful. But gee, it takes your arm right up into a full flex position with a big weight and jams it up there. It will and has caused a lot of shoulder problems. Remember, these are all scapular control exercises. So from there, controlling down and back, and up. Just again increasing the neurological demand compared to a normal push-up. And you can do a push-up plus on that as well. So you start replicating the exercise we just talked about. So if you're going to do a flexion movement, you start it moving. Take it up, down. And while you're doing it, you're trying to control that scapular position at the same time, as opposed to getting into that which you see some people do. So early stage reps, not too bad, just toys to play with. It's not about just looking at rotator cuff strength. It's look at the whole picture. A couple of simple pre-screening tools that we had there. Look at thoracic spine extension. Make sure they've got adequate positioning. If they can't get the arms up to there, they don't need to do overhead stuff. And they certainly won't do any good in a pool or class situations where they have to repeatedly do overhead work.